Let's bring in Stephanie Bastiaan, Women's Forum Australia Research Fellow. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's talk about the Flying Bats Football Club's Sydney soccer team competing in a women's comp. But 5 of their players are transgender women, i.e. biological men who identify as women. And this team is back in the news because they're taking to the pitch again this week and they have dominated every team they've played. Not surprising when half the team are biological men. They won the pre-season tournament. They've won games 12-0, 10-0. And the administrators are allowing this to happen, Stephanie. This is causing more and more problems in the league. Some parents have spoken out, some players have spoken out, but a lot of them are doing it anonymously.
It's good to see some pushback, particularly by female players who have been impacted. This gets a little bit stranger because the Flying Bats are actually a lesbian team from the 80s.
Jeez.
So you have, it sounds like the set of a Monty Python play. You have these heterosexual men identifying as lesbians playing on this queer football team, and they're annihilating all their opponents. I think that it's good that people are speaking out, but I would encourage other female teams to actually start boycotting these games because there's no fairness while these men are allowed to play and dominate the sport.
Well, one player has written a letter calling on administrators to see sense, saying they are showing a complete disregard of women. Men and women are different, she said. Women do not have the same physical characteristics, obviously. And another player called into radio station 2GB about the perils of playing against biological men.
Sarah has phoned in. She's played against them before.
Yes, I did, and I used to play against the Flying Bat. It was a couple of years ago, and there was only 1 or 2, and even then it made a significant difference. We were unable to beat them. They were first to the ball every time. When you're in a one-on-one tackle, there is that difference. There's a different muscle, there's a different energy, and it was just disheartening. My team was quite an advanced team. Even us with all of our skills, we couldn't muscle up to it.
Is another club out there any hope of beating the Bats?
No. It's straight up no.
Well, I can understand why the women aren't speaking on the record because we have seen athletes attacked when they have made a stand. But let's not forget our national women's team, the Matildas, lost 7-0 to the Newcastle under-15 boys. The Newcastle in New South Wales, not the UK. So that's the difference we're talking about. So to have 5 players on one team with that advantage...
Insane, absolutely insane.
It absolutely is. Another example of the inequalities between trans women and biological women, real women. A mediocre male athlete who would have finished last if he competed against the men. He wouldn't have even made the finals. But have a look at this competitor, Sadie Schreiner, not only win, but break the 400-metre record at the Liberty League Championship. You can understand why a mediocre male athlete would want to compete in the women's, because you're breaking records. You're not coming last.
Absolutely, but this is actually this is destroying women's sport as a category. There is no women's sport while you have men playing. You have mixed-sex sport. Women are the only group of people that have anything to lose because once men are playing, it is no longer female sport.
And all this raises the question, where are the feminists on this? We've seen a renewed push against the very serious issue of domestic violence in recent weeks. But, Stephanie, it seems extraordinary that we've got a lot of feminists, a lot of activists connecting things like risque jokes and banter with violence against women. But they say nothing about the importance of things like female-only spaces, including at shelters for survivors of domestic violence.
I think this goes to a broader problem, though. There is so much public pressure. You can lose your job if you speak out. You are doxed online. You are bullied into oblivion if you take a stance on these issues. More and more women are speaking up, particularly where it affects them. But, I mean, we speak to mums all the time, particularly in private schools, where boys are now using girls' facilities. And they're terrified of affecting their children's lives at school, so they want to talk anonymously, but they're tearing their hair out and they don't know what to do. So we need some strong vocal opposition. We need, particularly from the Liberals, well, they need to stand up because there is a large group of women and mums and girls who are all struggling with this issue and no one is providing them the protection to speak up.
And there's also a very large migrant community who cares about this issue. And I think the Liberal Party is absolutely ignoring that demographic. Socially conservative migrants who may have traditionally voted Labor, but these are things they care about. This impacts their children, and the Liberals, certainly at state level, are giving these people nothing. Now, we warned this would happen, that other states would follow Victoria's regressive policies, and WA is the latest with a proposal that would see sex self-ID in the state. Stephanie, tell me, what would be the impact of this policy? What are the legal ramifications?
Well, essentially, it's allowing men to self-ID anywhere without any medical advice, anything, not that they need it actually, but it allows them with a signature to change their identification on their legal documents and be allowed anywhere as women, protected under anti-discrimination laws for women. Now, this bill was actually flagged 3 weeks ago, so the WA Labor government have rammed it through without consultation. If they'd consulted, they would have seen the ramifications in Queensland and in Victoria, where, you know, you have male rapists with female prisoners, things like that. The difference in WA, though, that is very heartening is Libby Metram has come out. Now, she's come out and her party will be voting against this bill. Yes. She was also very vocal. A couple of weeks ago, they introduced a policy to ban puberty blockers. So I hope her state and federal colleagues take some courage from what she's doing, because it's great to see some common sense coming out of WA.
That was heartening. So she's the first Liberal leader at state or federal level to take a stand on puberty blockers. So that's great to see. A bit of courage. And finally, the Tories are finding their courage. There must be an election close by. They're rediscovering their Conservative credentials a bit too late. Far too little too late, but they've proposed a ban on gender-neutral toilets in new non-residential buildings, places like office buildings and restaurants. What do you think about this, Stephanie?
I think it's great. I think it's terrific that the UK are continuing to lead the Western world on these policies. I find gender-neutral bathrooms, or even with our self-ID laws, very uncomfortable. I don't let my daughters go. And there's nothing worse than trying to adjust yourself or fix your makeup and have a man come out from the cubicle behind you.
And also, they're just gross. Their toilets are gross. There's a reason why women prefer to have women's bathrooms, because there is a difference. And we're seeing these gender-neutral toilets. There's all over Melbourne Airport. You can see them now. And yeah, if you're the first to use them, fine. But if a man's been in there, no thank you. Stephanie Bastiaan, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks for having me, Rita.